Coming to you live from Radio Row in Las Vegas, we are here with David Chang, restaurateur, TV star, a million different buckets at this point. I truly don't know how you have that much time in the day. I was thinking that the other day when I was on Netflix, and I saw that you were going live with one thing, and then there was another show coming, and I just seen you on Amazon like 2 weeks earlier. I don't know how you do it. It's very impressive.
Good question. I'm still figuring that out. Yeah. Been busy. Busy's better than not busy.
That is very true. It's been a busy week for the football team that you have historically rooted for. It's been a busy couple weeks. How are you feeling about everything going on in Washington right now?
You know, we're here in Las Vegas, and I got to be honest, for 20 plus years, this was my team that I rooted for because they were so bad. But I'm still it's a little like Stockholm Syndrome a little bit. I don't know how to feel about the new ownership. I'm excited. I'm super excited, but it's just been hard 20 plus years.
Yeah, there's a lot of scar tissue.
Yeah.
And I think it had gone so well from the moment that Josh Harris and them bought the team. Every single thing, every single moment was like, oh, the fan base is excited. Everyone is happy. The Ben Johnson thing and him not going felt like the first blow to the fan base in 8 months.
I got to say, I was really upset that he didn't even take the interview.
I know.
You know? I wanted to root for that guy even if he said no.
How do you feel about Dan Quinn? Are you excited about it?
I don't know. He's a cowboy.
That's
the problem.
That's true. I didn't even think about that side of it.
He's a cowboy.
He's a good guy, though. I mean, if you want a professional building, you want guys who are going to enjoy coming to work, I think he'll be able to give you that.
Do you think that he's going to be the guy?
I think he will do a very solid job.
That's not what we're looking for.
I understand.
We're looking for transcendent coaching.
I'm with you on that. But when you've been where you were, like you alluded to for the last 20 years, having an adult in the room who can give you a modicum of professionalism, stability, those things are important at this stage.
Well, at the very least, I was glad that we didn't hire someone like Jim Zorn. Couldn't even wear the right colors on the.
We were talking about this earlier this week, just how football transactions worked in the late 90s and early 2000s, and almost all of the discussion was about Washington during that time. Just you look at some of the things they gave up, they traded a first-round pick for Brad Johnson.
We traded Champ Bailey away.
Yes, for a running back, which now, if that happened, it would just be the craziest thing.
And we gave them a second-round pick.
All right, I want to ask you about some stuff from your world specifically. It's been kind of an event-filled year for you. I mean, it's Mofuku. You closed some restaurants last fall, things that have been your life's work for a very long time. How did just that transition and some of those things, taking place? How are you processing them? How are you feeling about them right now as you kind of move into a different stage of your life?
Well, if you continue to do the same things that made you successful, I think more often than not, that might be the reason you fail.
Yeah.
And the world has changed dramatically, and our goals have changed. And I'm a dad now, and I stepped down from day-to-day decision-making, and we're still going to do restaurants. We have some very exciting news that I can't talk about yet. But it's been quite the change to focus on building a consumer product goods business so you can get our noodles and our sauces basically at, nationwide at supermarkets and grocery stores. But, if you think about all the football teams that made dramatic changes in their coaching, you need to keep it moving in a different way. And we were zigging where hopefully everyone's zagging, and it was a lot. The past 3.5 years, not that anybody needs a reminder, was difficult for everybody.
Totally.
And I think clearly for the culinary profession was the hardest, but we're really excited about what's happening. And what I can do now is focus on a lot more media and still help out with the team with some creative to sort of build that awareness and change how we're cooking for people, where it's not just maybe in the four walls of a restaurant, but at a much larger scale.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the restaurant industry now and when you were opening things 15, 20 years ago?
It's much more popular now.
Yeah.
People care.
There's a culture around it now that feels different than it was before.
The younger generation, the Gen Zs, I think they actually view it as cultural currency.
I think that's exactly the right way to put it.
Right?
Yes.
And all of their disposable income is going to that. And while that's great, I think that's really being fed by social media. So we're losing some of the artisanship potentially. Fine dining is not going away, but I think what we are going to have is, it's actually not so different than sports, where when one thing works and then everyone copies it, then that's sort of that transition state that the food world is in. and that's changed. And I think one of the things that clearly has changed is access to information, right? And I think going back with just football, like 20, 25 years ago, if you had something that worked, no one knew how to copy it.
It's a great comparison. Yeah, I mean, if you look at just the offensive skill, like offensive coaching trees proliferate around the NFL and how much those get picked over, eventually you're going to run out of ideas. Eventually that pool is going to run dry.
And, like speaking of the then Washington football team or then the Washington Redskins, Joe Gibbs was able to stockpile talent.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks would never play, but that's what we did. You could sit somebody for 3 to 4 years. And you can't do that today. And I think in the culinary world today, if you hire a really good cook, they're looking immediately for what's next. They don't want to wait. And things are just moving at a much more rapid pace, not just in the food world, but everywhere.
It feels like, and this is just anecdotal, but I love food and I love just watching kind of the curves of the industry at times. And I think a lot of restaurants that have gotten notoriety, become successful, the story around the restaurant is central to the success at this point. I'm thinking of Kasama in Chicago is like the example that I would use, where it's a Filipino restaurant. It was a breakfast place. COVID comes in, they moved to like a fine dining menu, and that's how they sustained. And now it's the only Michelin-star Filipino restaurant in the country. And I think a lot of people grabbed onto it because it was different, because there was a story around it. And it feels like that's driving what a lot of people are interested in food-wise, at least from where I'm sitting.
For sure. And I think, again, social media is driving the virality of things.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite figured out if that's a good or bad thing. Again, on one hand, it's good because more, like for example, there's a Korean dish called Chang, which is marinated, technically not raw, but people would see it as raw crab. It's a delicious dish.
I had it. What's the place there's a place in Koreatown that I went to and had it recently. It was like last year, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant now.
There's a bunch of them.
I know.
Soban, rich crab.
It was at Soban. Yeah, that's exactly where it was. Yes.
And it's really a delicious dish, and it's something you eat with rice. But it's become sort of this social media trend where a lot of people will go to the Korean supermarket, buy it, and then eat it on, TikTok or Instagram, and then share their reactions. And I would say probably 50% of the people are like, this is the worst thing I've ever tasted in my life.
It is a textural experience for sure.
The other 50% are like, I actually like it. So for me, it's like just doing the math. Well, there are more people that are more aware about a dish, and that Korean food isn't just Korean barbecue. And even though that there's 50% of the people that may not like it, I think the benefits outweigh the cons.
The exposure there, I think,
Correct.
is worth it as you're weighing the cost benefit for sure. You've done a lot of work around stadium food recently, the work you're doing with Amazon. If you could change one thing about just stadium food culture in general, what do you think it would be?
I think there's a tendency in stadium food culture, because we've had it quite a bit. We have Fukus where, we have one here in Allegiant. We're serving stuff at Allegiant. We're in T-Mobile here as well, Fuku. I've seen a lot of different things happen in stadium food. But the trend is for sure, and this happened even before, social media, to make the most insane monstrosity.
How you eat them.
Yeah, baseball games are now how much food can you fit into a helmet? Yeah. And how high can you do it? And, I think, I grew up an Orioles fan. I remember when Boog's Barbecue was there at the warehouse, and, that was just a revelation. Good food didn't exist at stadiums.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe we should get back to just making simple good food, right?
If you could change one thing about the trajectory of the restaurant industry now, what would you say it is? If you could go in and just be a consultant for somebody who's going to start a restaurant group, what would be your number one piece of advice for them?
Don't try to be cool. I think chasing cool in this day and age is a really difficult proposition, right? Because things are moving so fast, and by chasing the cool, you're going to follow the trends, and then by doing so, you're going to have a restaurant that is going to be hard to distinguish itself. And at the end of the day, just like in sports, there's a lot of factors that are going to lead to a successful restaurant or a restaurant group, one of which is execution. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you do, if you just make spaghetti and meatballs and that's all you do, and you make it better than anyone else, you're going to be great. That's not going to change. The biggest issue is everyone is now doing the same things, and there's no more individuality. So to me, I need that diversity in food. I want to be able to see people doing different things, but, we live in a copycat world.
What's a restaurant in Vegas people should try that they have not tried?
Last night I was at Lotus SIM.
I went on Tuesday night. Yeah.
Everybody knows it, but
Yeah.
I'm always surprised that a lot of people still don't know it. And I think Las Vegas really does have the best food in the country. I do believe that. But there's terrific places off the strip as well.
Dave, you're here with Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, because there is another big global moment this week. That is the Lunar New Year. You teamed up with Toyota to create the Lunar New Year Tailgate Challenge. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Lunar New Year is very, very big, especially my family. Toyota was awesome to have the idea to pit two of the best chefs in the country. You got Brandon Jew from Mr. Jew's in San Francisco. You have Nico De Leon from La Cita in Los Angeles. And, it's the Super Bowl, so the thing that I like is fried chicken. So we're going to have a fried chicken off, and it's going to happen a little bit later today.
I'm very excited about getting to Mr. Jew's next time I'm in San Francisco. I couldn't get a reservation last time, but I'm angling for one.
They make a great duck.
I'm really looking forward to it. Awesome. Thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Robert.